I am your host, James Yoder. It is our Inside Michigan Football mailbag. We're putting Inside Michigan Football because we saw a couple good questions in there that I think pull some really great information out of me as Michigan is going to play FAS Alabama on January 1st. We're going to focus a little bit on that game, talk about next year, the future for this Michigan football team. But before we do, keep putting the good vibes out this Christmas season, this holiday season, Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. But we're all Michigan fans, hopefully, or you're just trying to spy on Michigan, trying to get an inside scoop. Nick Saban watching. Type Go Blue either in the live chat or if you're watching this on demand. We'll put this up on the channel Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe even on Christmas Day. If you're watching it then, give me a Go Blue down in the comments. Let's take our first question, though, from Daniel DeWalt. Daniel DeWalt says, if JJ returns in 2024, where will we be ranked in the preseason polls? And he's using hashtag Michigan. If you're watching live, make sure you're using that hashtag Michigan as well. That's a really good question because it's so confusing and so difficult right now, these last couple of years, to really future kind of project the next year's polls until all the NFL guys have had and all the transfer portal has happened. But even more worse than that is the transfer portal happens again in April. So you could get quarterbacks who lose their starting job or in a battle, they don't win the starting job in the spring. They want to transfer. So a lot of things can change between now and August when these polls came out. But we had this ready for a show that we're going to do in a couple weeks. And so I figured, Jack, let's toss up the screen. So here's my way too early top 10. You see 1, 2, and 3. I'm just bunching them together, right? Whichever of those three teams, at least in my opinion, as long as what Daniel says. So if JJ returns, right, it's contingent on JJ returning, contingent on Quinn Ewers returning, whichever one of those teams does best in the college football playoffs. So, for instance, Michigan, Alabama. Michigan wins, but they lose to Texas. Texas is number 1 next year. Michigan's probably number 2, right? If Alabama somehow beats Michigan, they win the national championship, they're number 1 next year. Maybe Texas is number 2, or Texas loses, they kind of drop down to number 3. Maybe Michigan, Alabama are 1-2 next year if they play in a close game. I've got Georgia. They've got the quarterback coming back. They could pop up into this top 3, maybe, depending on who leaves for any of these schools. Of course, if Quinn Ewers or JJ McCarthy leaves, then I think it's a definite. Oregon got a great quarterback transfer, 2 great quarterback transfers. Utah, right? They're returning the quarterback for a 6th year. I don't know where to put Ohio State. I don't know who the quarterback's going to be, but they'll have one of the top 4 or 5 most talented teams in the country, so we're going to put them at number 7. Drew Aller coming in back at Penn State. Those running backs, great offense coming back. I guess great talented offense, not really a great execution offense. Coming back at number 8. Ole Miss owning the transfer portal next year. They'll have their quarterback returning. And then Arizona. What a season from Arizona, Jack. I like what I see out of Arizona. My thoughts are on this. So if whatever team plays better in this CFP, that's going to be your number 1 player, number 1 team in the preseason polls. Just like Georgia was last year, right? They're not in the playoff. They lost their quarterback, but they dominated TCU 65-7, beat Ohio State. So they're just the de facto. They're number 1 next year. You got to beat them to take them out. Whatever happens with Michigan, Alabama, and Texas, I think the team that performs the best, right? That performs the best. One of those 3 teams is going to win the national championship. If Texas beats Washington, one of those 3 teams will win the national championship. And that's the case. I think they'll be the number 1 team in the country. The other 2 will fall right behind them, assuming those quarterbacks coming back. If Washington were to win the national title, I don't even think they'll be in the top 5 unless they get a transfer quarterback down the stretch here that we don't know about that can keep them at the level they played the last 2 seasons with Michael Penix Jr. Let me know what you guys think, though, on JJ McCarthy in 2024. Will he play at Michigan for a 4th season, 3rd season as the starting quarterback, or will he be NFL bound? I've said it in the past. If he's a top 15 pick, which I think he might be, then look, I don't want something bad to happen where his football career's over and he never got to make money and kind of cash in on that. I'll say the NFL, but I hope that he's at Michigan just selfishly. So it's all kind of goes on him. If he's a top 15 pick, go. If you're not a top 15 pick, right, if you're like slated maybe 27th or 2nd round, come back, be a top 5 or 10 pick next year, maybe even number 1 pick, and get all that guaranteed money right on your first contract. Coming in from Ken Canyon with a question. He says, if you think Harbaugh, do you think JJ will stay? If Harbaugh stays, JJ will stay. It certainly helps, right? I think JJ McCarthy is going to make a decision before we know what happens with Jim Harbaugh, because the NFL season, what we got, 3 weeks here left, Jack? Let me know when the last NFL regular season games are, right? So we got this weekend, right? Then we got the weekend after that. I'm guessing they're that weekend of the 7th, right? Will be the last games, January 7th for there. So once that happens, NFL teams still have to go through like the interview process. They've got Rooney rules. They've got to interview minority candidates. They got to go through these different rules, and teams that might be targeting for coaches might be in the playoffs. They've loosened those rules. So JJ might have to make his decision before Jim really has the opportunity to accept or decline any NFL jobs. Now, if Jim signs a contract today, tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, then I think it improves the chances. But I don't know if they're necessarily intertwined. What I think would push JJ out is if Jim Harbaugh definitely left. Like, let's say he accepted a job with the Bears on like January 11th before JJ has to make a decision, then I do think JJ decides to go head on to the NFL. Great question, though, from Ken Canyon. Next question coming in from Sean Elliott and Chef Maine. I see that question. I want to answer that question in the live chat. Just put it back in there or use hashtag Michigan unless Jackie can find it and put it up there. Sean Elliott says, what impact will Harbaugh's decision have on potential flips or late signing day in February, right? You got Gatelin Bear, right? The linebacker who's going to go on a 2-year Mormon mission in 2024 and 2025. So be a true freshman in 2026 as like a 20, 21-year-old. But nevertheless, he's the fastest player in high school football this year. He's a borderline 5-star wide receiver, like top 50 or so player in the country. I expect him, he's already decommitted from Boise State. I expect him to commit to Michigan in January, early February, at latest by that February 7th signing day. If he doesn't, I mean, that's somebody they could lose, right? He might flip and go over to Oregon. They have a better, more stable quarterback position, more stable coaching in the future. That's his other school, Michigan and Oregon. For transfer portal, though, I think it would all come down to how fast they name a new coach. If it's Sharon Moore, I do think that Michigan could salvage this recruiting class, not everybody ask out of their national letter of intent, or still get a few high-level players for the transfer portal. But if Harbaugh lets it string out for weeks and weeks, I think it could be a bad thing for Michigan. Let me ask you guys this question. Help me get to know you guys better. What year did you become a Michigan football fan? Or even what year do you remember becoming a Michigan football fan? The first year you remember. I'm going to go do an ad read here. We've got to pay the bills, so I'm going to do an ad read. So while I'm doing this ad read, of course, support the sponsor too, but go in the live chat, go in the comments if you're watching later on. Let me know what year you became a Michigan football fan. I think mine is 1991, Desmond Howard, Elvis Gerback, and come back up and listen to the end of this ad read from PrizePicks, my favorite app. It's the easiest and fastest way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is you pick more or you pick less on player stats to win up to 25 times your money. Let's take a look at my picks this week on PrizePicks. I've already done it. They put them in there so you can go make these picks right now for the Rose Bowl, any college football bowl game, right? I'm going more for JJ McCarthy, 16.5 rushing yards. That's preposterously low, I think. I think it'll end up going up from there, but right now, 16.5. I'm going more for Jalen Milroe, right? 32.5 rush yards for him. I think Michigan's going to stop him from having any passing opportunities. He'll get his yards on the ground. How about Colson Love then, right? I'm making 5 picks on this one. I'm going more than 36.5 receiving yards. I think he's going to be the difference maker for Michigan. Less for Blake Corum, and I'll tell you why in our live show or what to watch for the Rose Bowl. Less than 71.5 yards for Blake Corum, and then less than 53.5 receiving yards for Jermaine Burton, Alabama's best wide receiver. I put $25 in this, right? I took my PrizePicks winning out, left my $25 in it. I'm letting it all right on this. I'll tell you what, man, if I win this bet, right, this PrizePicks, I will continue to let that ride into the national championship game as well. Those 5 picks, if they all come true, right, just more or less, I'm winning 10 times my money. $250. I put in 25 to win $250. Why I love PrizePicks? It's very simple. I'll put it on the screen here. It's you versus the numbers. You're not playing other your players. You're not playing against daily fantasy experts. You can mix and match sports, right? I could have Michigan basketball, Michigan football. I could have NBA, NFL, college football, NFL on one selection, right? Is Matthew Stafford going to have touchdowns more or less than 1.5? And is JJ McCarthy going to have more or less than 1.5 touchdowns? Stuff like that. Reboot policy, if you get an injury in the first half, they don't return, takes it out of the submission. You're not, dinged for somebody to have an injury. And then flex play. You saw that on my screen. They're giving me, if I get 4 of those 5 correct, I still win 2 times my money. If I get 3 of the 5 correct, I don't win, all my money back, but I get 40%, 0.4x my money. So quick math, that's like $12 or something like that. $10, I'm sorry, on back on that $25 PrizePicks entry. The link is in the comments and the description. Get up to a $100 deposit match with PrizePicks. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Use code CLNS. It's in the description. It's in the comments. It's in the live chat. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Use code CLNS for up to $100 deposit match. Use PrizePicks. I love it, and you will too. Question coming in from Connor Stallion's secretary. Is that Blake Corum? I think it's Blake Corum. I get the joke here, right? I think, they had that LLC together that Blake Corum denied happens. I get the joke. What are Michigan's top advantages and disadvantages in this game? We've got, I think, my disadvantage from another segment we're doing later on in this live show. So let's toss those up here, Jack. They got them up there for me. Good. Experience and depth, right? Michigan, I'm going to do 2 for each school right now, for each team. Michigan's advantage over Alabama is their experience and their depth. You've got a quarterback who has started in one, played big minutes in another, third college football playoff, right? Alabama doesn't have that, right? You get wide receivers who have seen their plays, their touchdowns be pulled away by a referee in Roman Wilson. You've also got these guys who went on the road, beat Ohio State 3 straight years, home, away, home, and depth, right? Too deep across the entire defensive line. I think Alabama's may have more talented starters at certain positions. Michigan's got better depth at maybe every position. I think the 2 deep, the first deep, you combine them together, maybe other than quarterback, because Alabama maybe is a better, more proven backups, and then potentially offensive line as now Michigan's down Zach Zinter, and I don't know after the 5th, 6th, 7th guy how deep this offensive line really is at this point. Next up, I think Michigan's got the advantage of quarterback, right? People seem to forget how damn good JJ McCarthy has been this season and really want to blame the last 3 or 4 games, right, without Jim Harbaugh. Injured, had a knee injury, an ankle injury. From what he said this week in the press, he's feeling up to 100%, and I think Michigan's going to base their game plan around JJ McCarthy. Somebody whispered in my ear some days, like, hey, remember Colin Kaepernick in the NFL playoffs, the Harbaugh? Keep an eye out for that. Jalen Milroe, he beat Georgia. He's got some decent stats, but it's a lot of, it's taking sacks, turnovers, Hail Mary balls to wide receivers who come down against schools like Coastal Carolina or whoever scrub team they're playing the early year and then the week before the Auburn game. How about on the other side, right? Nick Saban. That is a huge advantage. No matter what we think about Jim Harbaugh, some people want to say he's the best coach in college football, the best coach in any level of football. He went to the Super Bowl. He went to the college football playoff 2 times. He went to 3 NFC championship games, 3 college football playoffs. Okay. Nick Saban's won 7 national championships. He's won 6 at Alabama. That's just an advantage. It frankly is. No matter who is on this team for Alabama, they still have Nick Saban. He's got an absurdly winning record. I think his record's like 9-4 in college football playoff and national championship games in this CFP era. He almost never loses. I think the only one he's lost is that first year, 2004, to Ohio State. Hopefully, Michigan kind of matched Ohio State, beat Alabama in the CFP in the first year, and then Michigan beats Alabama in the CFP the last year of the 4-team playoff. And then just in general, this one's so hard to quantify. It's just SEC results in this college football playoff, right? I mean, last year, Georgia won their game against Ohio State. 2 years ago, Georgia and Alabama won their games in the college football playoff. And they faced off in the national championship game, right? Back in 2020, Alabama won the national championship game over Ohio State. Go back to 2017, Alabama against Georgia. LSU is the national championship game. So it seems like every single year, I mean, frankly, I can't remember if there's been a single year other than Oregon, Ohio State, that you haven't had an SEC championship team in the championship game. 15, 16, 17, 18, yes, 19, yes, 20, yes, 21, yes. Yes, every single year, 8 straight years, an SEC team has been in the national championship game, and the only year it hasn't happened is Ohio State beat Alabama, so hopefully Michigan can match that and overcome these advantages that Alabama has over this Michigan team. Casey Scott, he says, I wonder what the excuse is going to be when Michigan wins the national championship. And that's got to be a motivating factor for this Michigan coaching staff, is to talk to the players like this. Like, give everything you got in this game. Every single minute counts. Every play counts. Every practice counts. Every focus. I mean, I was trying to watch like 15 minutes of Jalen Miller highlights. After like 4 minutes yesterday, I got pretty bored. They can't get bored, right? I got to have focus. They got to have focus. But if you lose to Alabama, and especially if you lose bad like Georgia a couple years ago, if it turns out Alabama were to win this game like 35-11 or something like that, like it was in 2021 to Georgia, all you're going to hear is, okay, cool, Michigan beat Big Ten teams, but Connor Stallions is the reason all this stuff happened. So motivate this team. Shut people up. You beat Alabama. You beat the SEC champion, right, who just beat Georgia. Crickets is what's going to happen after that. Crickets some Big Ten fans now. Let's get crickets from every college football hater out there. Kyle Jondon. Is it Jondon? Or is it Johnson? Is it Jondon? It's a crazy last name, but I like it. What scares you the most about playing Alabama? I mean, I guess it's probably Nick Saban, right? He's going to have 4 weeks and 2 days, 30 days, to come up with the game plan to beat Michigan. On the other side, Jim Harbaugh has lost 6 straight postseason games, in the bowl season, right? He's won 3 Big Ten championship games, lost 6 straight. postseason games, including both playoff games, right? There's no excuse Michigan should have lost last year to TCU. They were clearly not prepared to beat and win that game. And Jack and I interviewed some TCU players at the National Championship Game Media Day, and they said as much. They didn't think Michigan was prepared. They thought Michigan, was super easy to scout. If this guy was in the game, we knew it was a run. If this guy was in the game, we knew the pass going this way. That just can't happen this year. So scares me most about him is Nick Saban. And then Jalen Milroe scares me some in the fact that Michigan hasn't faced a quarterback as big as him who can run like him. Got to come up with a game plan. You can, but it's just different. And last but not least, they have 4 or 5 first-round level talents starting for them on their secondary. Maybe the best freshman in the country in Caleb Downs, 2 All-American cornerbacks, and then Dallas Turner, potentially the best defensive end in all of college football. If you guys have yet to do so, subscribe to the Michigan Football Report. We're doing a 2.5-hour, 3-hour live show on signing day. We'll have one more live show a week from now. If you're watching on the weekend, it'll be Wednesday night. Next Wednesday, we'll maybe night. I don't know what time you think we should do it. We'll see. Wherever you guys want, we'll have a final live show of the year next Wednesday. Subscribe to the channel as we just passed 30,000 subscribers here on the show. We were the number 1 in September, October, November, let's make it December as well. Number 1 most consumed show on YouTube, podcast, radio, or TV that covers Michigan football. That's a fact. I've got the numbers to prove it. And I really appreciate everyone who's joined the ride. YouTube.com/Michigan TV. Smash that subscribe button. Our guy Jacksonville Zoe is on the hard hat. Help get Jack to Indianapolis, to Houston with a $50 super chat. He says, really nice linebacker addition from Maryland. His stats should be better next year in a Jesse Minter defense. This broke as we were live here on our signing day special. Jayshon Barham, right? 2 years at Maryland, 2-year starter, was a top 150 recruit coming out of high school, right? Number 30 ranked recruit overall. Out of St. Francis in Baltimore, Maryland, where Michigan has really, really dominated and got some of the best players over the past 4 or 5 years. Biff Poggi's old stomping grounds. 96 tackles in 2 seasons. Was like a freshman All-American level player in 2022. Stepped back a little bit in 2023. Had to sit out a couple games. And he's got some pretty good stats, though. 7 sacks on his career. He was the guy, if you guys remember, and it took me a second when I heard the name and then saw, oh, yeah. He was the guy who intercepted JJ McCarthy at the end of the second quarter, when Michigan was driving to put the game against Maryland. They really kept them in the ball game, right? He interviewed JJ, spied him a little bit, and just read JJ's eyes, popped back, intercepted him about the 2-yard line. So big addition for Michigan. 4-star player, top 150 player in the 2022 class. 2 seasons at Maryland. Going to come over to Michigan, have 2 seasons of eligibility. Big time pickup for these Wolverines. Chef Maine coming in saying, I'm just waiting on Domani Jackson to commit to us. So got some news on Wednesday morning, Sunday morning, that Michigan certainly has made contact with Domani Jackson, but they have got players on the case right now. Will Johnson, of course, right, is on the case. But Mike Sainristil is reaching out to him, right, talking about how he could play at Michigan, how he could up his game, how much his NFL stock has changed in this Jesse Minter defense, right? 2 seasons there. I don't know if you've got a better player in Michigan's defense over the last 2 years than Mike Sainristil. So I think if I had to put odds in right now, I would say better than not odds that Michigan will land Domani Jackson, right? Top 10 player in the 2022 class with Will Johnson, buddy with Will Johnson. And if you guys remember, one of the fastest track athletes in the history of the state of California broke their 100-meter record as a high school junior. So my money's on Michigan getting him at this point, but Alabama's going to make a big push for him, one of his finalists as a recruit. And then his main recruiter has went from USC over to Georgia. So certainly the Bulldogs, if that relationship is still strong, will have a chance to land Domani Jackson.